Jackson, thank you so much for coming through. I was absolutely perplexed when I read that Centurion is built on a floodplain, and there's sort of an explanation that says it's a 50-year floodline or 100-year floodline. In a moment you can explain what that means for us. But under what circumstances would anyone build a city and put hotels and everything on a floodplain?
Yes, like you've mentioned, the 50-year and 100-year floodline would usually advise people if there's a need to build there. Moreover, what I can say is that as developers, we don't discourage development. What we do is we accommodate it and see how best it can suit the environment. Next of all, we should also think about urbanization. There's a lot of people coming to the city. There's a lot of population growing up. There's population rise. So there's a need for these developments to take place.
So this is the floodplain that involves the Henops River, right?
Definitely.
And it's not like here we are talking about a few, houses dotted on that floodplain.
Yes.
We're talking an entire town built around the 1980s, the area around Centurion Lake. In particular, is the thinking that you can mitigate against disaster and therefore you can go ahead and build on a floodplain? I'm asking, are there measures that town planners and people developing areas can take to mitigate the risk of flooding?
Yes, definitely there are measures. What we do is there are urban designers that will design the city in such a manner that when there is an overflow of rain, that it is catched and is drained out through the infrastructure system. However, what we find in these cities is that most of these infrastructures are blocked. Moreover, what we are faced with currently is that there is a change in the climate. Now, this could have affected that floodline as well. It is also affecting the anticipation of these floods. So that's what we are seeing.
So the age of the infrastructure and the state of it and maintenance also add to the big overarching factor, being that a town like that would be on a floodplain.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what is the involvement then of town planners, people such as yourself, in thinking about these kind of decisions? What's the role that you imagine that would have been played by professionals like yourself at the point at which it was decided, let's build a town here?
Yes, now our role is that when the site is identified, is that we look at what are the risks there. Is the dolomitic soil, is the soil dolomitic? Are there floodlines? And therefore we will advise as to which areas need to be developed, which areas are not suitable for development. I assume in this instance it was advised that no development can take place. However, there is such risks involved. There are such risks. Given those risks, the developers as well as the authorities would have anticipated that.
Yeah.
No, it is.
So when you were watching the visuals, the dramatic visuals of how flooded the whole place was and people having to be rescued by military helicopters, what was your sense? Did the people who were involved in developing and thinking about developing that town, did they get it wrong?
I wouldn't say they got it wrong. However, I would say that given the natural environment and how things have changed compared to when it was established, we could say things are wrong now. However, I would focus on mitigating what we are currently going through. We have to look forward and not actually question as what has happened from the past. Because what currently needs to be done is we need to look at ways in which we can avoid such instances of occurring again.
So what are those ways that we can help to mitigate? I imagine that when it was first built, that particular area, it wasn't as densely populated as it is, and I imagine that there was no mall and all that activity that is now there and the building that has taken place over the years. What can be done now? We have a part of the city of Tshwane on a floodplain. What can we do now?
Okay, what needs to be done now is, like we mentioned, the infrastructure needs to be ensured that it's up to standard. And moreover, South Africa is a place where we sometimes go through droughts. This should actually be looked at as an opportunity. We could channel this water and have catchment systems, man-made catchment systems. Second of all, what we need to do is we need to reconfigure the way we address such issues. We need to move towards a time where planners, developers, as well as risk management, flood risk managers talk together and ensure that such instances are prepared for before they happen. And I'd like to add, we're moving towards the fourth industrial revolution. This is another opportunity where we can bring in technology in order to anticipate such occurrences before they happen.
Right. Jackson, thank you so much for coming through. And by the way, how many of these kind of urban sprawling developments do we have that are on a floodplain around the country? Are you aware of others?
I'm not aware, but I know there are many.
That's quite a number.
And what I could add is that there are those that could have not been at first, but because of the climate change, that they become prone to such disasters.
All right, thank you so much for coming through and sharing your insights with me. That is Jackson Sebola-Samanyanga from Wits University. We've been talking about that particular part of Centurion, which was flooded in the last 2 weeks or so, being located on a flood line.